Welcome back. Now, after the abduction of the Chibok girls in April 2014, efforts were made to develop strategies to improve security in Nigerian schools and safeguard school children. A whole decade after the Chibok incident in Borno State, northeast Nigeria, 90 of the 276 schoolgirls remain unaccounted for, while the security situation in schools, especially in the north of the country, still remain precarious. Now, the 10th anniversary of the Chibok abductions, the United Nations Children's Fund says more actions are needed to secure children's education in Nigeria. In its minimum standards for safe schools monitoring report, UNICEF reveals just 37% of schools across 10 states have early warning systems in place to identify threats such as school attacks. The report looked at 6 results areas such as strong school system, violence against children, natural hazards, conflict, everyday hazards, and safe school infrastructure, and uncovered significant disparities in the implementation of safe school standards now across Nigerian states. The analysis comes on the heels of disturbing reports of violence affecting schools, with brazen abductions of students on the rise. Reacting to the report, UNICEF Nigeria says it is working with the federal government to ensure that every child can access safe learning environments. Joining me now to shed more light on that report is Sadna Pandey Subrayan, who is UNICEF's Chief of Education here in Nigeria. Thank you very much, madam, for joining us on the program. Now, quite a sobering report there released by your organization when you consider the number of children abducted and killed in the last 10 years in Nigeria. Now, these are school children we're talking about here. The report also says only 37% of schools across 10 states have early warning systems in place to identify threats. Could you please speak to us about your findings?
Well, it is of concern, that, we've had almost 10 years of these type of attacks in Nigeria, and that we've been unable to use the intelligence that has been produced over the years to try and set up an early warning system so that we can predict where the next attack is likely to happen. But more than that, how do we go about mitigating these risks so that we can protect children from these type of threats. So it's absolutely critical that we begin to set up these early warning systems at a federal level, at a state level, and at a school level to ensure that learning spaces are safe and that parents feel confident to send their children to school.
Now, the report also cited Policy Weekly by next year, saying as of 2021, over 1 million children, and that's quite scary, were afraid of returning to school. Now, these attacks have not stopped. We just had one recently at Kuriga in Kaduna State, not quite long ago. So what is the current situation with parents being afraid to send their children to school?
Yes, part of this is to have regular data that begins to tell us what the picture looks like on school safety and the consequences of these attacks. And this is something that we really need to work towards closing in the country. And this is why we did this monitoring exercise, to understand what's happening on the ground with regard to school safety. So when we look at some of the reasons why children are out of school, poverty is one of the biggest factors. Social norms that don't support education is another. Poor quality teaching and learning, and very low domestic financing on education. But one of the features we find, consistently in the conversations that we have with children and with parents, it's insecurity. As soon as an attack takes place, no parent is going to be prepared to send their child to school. So no doubt these kind of attacks impact the ability of children to attend school, and the extent to which they feel safe to be at school. But more than that, it's not just about school attacks, it's about violence on the way to and from school. So we need to look at this more broadly when we talk about school safety and begin to address all the different components that make up school safety in Nigeria.
Now, as UNICEF, what are you doing to help government at all levels, even at the local government level now, to address this challenge of insecurity at schools?
So we have worked very closely with the government over the past 5 years to set up a very enabling policy environment. So Nigeria endorsed the Safe Schools Declaration in 2019. In 2021, we supported the government to develop a safe schools policy. And then we went a step further to support them to develop the minimum standards on safe schools. And this monitoring exercise that we've just undertaken was to produce the data to tell us the extent to which schools are actually implementing the safe school standards. But we also work at a state level. So in 13 states, we have set up state steering committees. We have helped them develop, these costed implementation plans around school safety. We have demonstrated how to implement these minimum standards in 13 states. We provide school safety kits, that include the safety materials, the whistles, etc. that children need to alert when an attack is happening. We've also provided grants to school to be able to fix up the infrastructure, to make sure that there's a fence, there's a gate, etc. And we have done a lot of training of teachers and learners on disaster risk planning and what to actually do when there is a flood or there's a fire, how to evacuate the school, and lock down the school premises when there's an attack taking place. And an important element of how we've supported schools is around the continuity of education. Because when an attack takes place, the school is shut down for a very long time. And we've got to make sure that children are able to learn. We do this through things like radio programming, TV programming, and we have a fantastic tool called the Nigeria Learning Passport. This is a digital learning platform that has 15,000 curriculum-aligned materials. It's free for use, and children can then go on and complete the courses to continue their education when these type of attacks take place.
You made some recommendations in the report. In addition to those recommendations now, what else would UNICEF like to see addressed now as far as school safety is concerned in Nigeria?
Well, we've got to make sure that the intelligence is used to develop these early warning systems. Something good needs to come out of all of these attacks. And when we gather that intelligence and we're able to use it to predict where this might happen again and how do we mitigate the risk, then, we can begin to protect our schools. We think that, the local government area and community must come together to do some very simple things, like put up a fence in the school, put up a lockable gate, set up entry and exit procedures. You can't just walk into a building without some sort of identification, with some sort of record of where you're coming from, what is your purpose of your school visit. And we think that school communities can come together to begin to fix some of these things, including, holding a fire drill in the school, because it's not just about attacks on schools. We've got a lot of climate change issues taking place, flooding, fire, etc. And the school community can prepare themselves for these type of events, have a second exit from the schooling system. So if one is blocked, they can use another exit. So it's very practical things that can be done, and we don't have to wait for federal government or state government to be able to take action. Local communities can do these things to keep their children safe.
Sadna Pandis-O'Brien, UNICEF Chief of Education in Nigeria, thank you very much for coming on the program, and thank you very much for talking to us.
You're most welcome.
Now we'll take another break, but when we come back, we'll continue the conversation on this very disturbing report by UNICEF on safe schools in Nigeria. Stay with us, don't go away. Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal. How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything: opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.